One of the most interesting parts of this book to me is the way we go back and forth from the discussion of politics to the discussion of theology. And indeed, one of your major critiques is that our liberals, as we've just heard you say, are pretty illiterate when it comes to theology, making broad generalizations which don't hold, a lot of ignorance there. But you accuse Christianity to a large extent of becoming a kind of a liberal cant. You use the word cant, C-A-N-T, in connection with a lot of Christianity, whether it's the religious right, which you have no patience for, or it's a kind of liberal Christianity, which is a kind of mushy supporter of late global capitalism. So one of the nice things about the book for me is a person who cares about theology and cares about politics and sees you so resolutely bringing them together all of the time in unexpected ways. It seems as if you're saying that those of us who study theology have impoverished theology by not paying enough attention to this political weight that our theology has.
One of the things I admire about Chris Hitchens' work on theology, quite apart from his utter illiteracy, is the fact that Hitchens is not at all a mushy liberal where this comes. Hitchens is quite properly prepared to say he thinks religion is disgusting. He thinks it's disgusting. And that gives you something to argue with, as against those who squirm around in the middle, and who feel they must respect any bizarre belief simply because it is somebody's belief. What an extraordinary intellectual situation. And in many ways, I would agree with Hitchens. Although in a certain sense I write the book defending Christianity against him and others, I mean, it seems to me that, most Christianity is sheer awful ideology at the service of power. The New Testament has been disgustingly betrayed in that respect. The message of the New Testament, the extraordinary message that those who will inherit the kingdom are the scum of the earth, not the respectable, law-abiding people, the scum of the earth. The Jesus who hung around with pimps and whores and what this society would call losers, yes, that has given way to the most extraordinary phenomenon of a faith which wouldn't even challenge, can pose no intellectual challenge to the intelligent agnostic or atheist. Which is oily, enormously lucrative, has a manic grin pasted permanently on its visage, and has utterly sold out the message of the New Testament. One of the problems with that is not only then that there are a lot of horrible redneck people around, and let's not forget that when we talk about fundamentalism, they're not just over there, they're Texan as well as Taliban, or wherever else they may come from, in a society like this, which is riddled from end to end with fundamentalism. Let's not forget also that if we talk about extremist fundamentalist Christians and extremist Muslims who blow the heads off innocent people, we also have to talk about extremist Jews, fanatical Jews who are even now bullying and aggressing their fellow citizens in the middle of Jerusalem. But one of the offshoots of that betrayal, to my mind, of the Christian gospel is that it makes the life of the atheist far too easy. It means that he or she can buy his or her atheism on the cheap. Yes, I live in Ireland. Yes, in Ireland now the situation is that if you see a priest walking down the street, you cross the road straight away. Used to be a landlord, but now it's a priest. Yes, I mean, but the Irish intelligentsia, of course they're atheistic. I mean, in the same way that most of them have two legs. One will just assume that they are, because the Irish Catholic Church has never offered them a version of the gospel that even challenged them. Yes, it's very easy. I was fortunate, I suppose, when I was a student at Cambridge to meet, brought up in a very typical papist fashion, very reactionary papist fashion, to encounter a version of the Christian gospel which actually did challenge me somewhat, which was certainly, I would still maintain, far to the left, politically, of the Hitchenses and Hitchens of the world. I mean, there are all kinds of reasons why Dawkins doesn't like Christianity, but one of them is because it doesn't fit into his rather smug and liberal sort of, North Oxford middle-class view. He no longer likes the idea that you should leave your family. The New Testament, of course, is deeply hostile to that little American fetish known as the family. Yes, deeply hostile, not least to Jesus' own family. Yeah? Dawkins finds that rather embarrassing. So Dawkins rejects Christianity on lots of grounds, some of them extremely good, but some of them because he rejects it for the same sorts of reasons. He wouldn't like to see his children running naked around the garden smoking dope. You know, yes. I think there's a version of the New Testament which challenges politically people like Dawkins and Hitchens, who has been moving further and further to the right, and therefore that's partly why I wrote the book, I suppose.